Welcome back to KTN Prime. We have an hour of very, very deep conversations, and I'm excited about this conversation because we've come a mighty long way with my next guest here, who is a man many Kenyans know through his music, through his ministry, advocacy, and so many things. But in recent years, also through politics. I'm talking about Dr. Reuben Kigame, the gospel musician turned presidential aspirant, who is once again seeking that high office in the land after being locked out in 2022 race. He is back, determined to be on the ballot in 2027. Tonight, we will talk vision. We're going to talk about politics. We will also talk about the state of the nation, plus his take on President William Ruto's 3 years as president of the Republic of Kenya, his performance, the hits, the misses, and not forgetting the gaps as well. And how has it been halfway through his term? Reuben Kigame joins me now. Welcome to KTN.
Thanks. It's nice to meet in a different setting, because I've known you as a scholar who does all this investigative stuff.
Yes.
And I thoroughly enjoyed your work on prosperity preachers. And that formed a lot of my work in my master's thesis.
Yes.
And I see you're still going strong.
I remember that's many, many years ago.
Absolutely.
We've grown old now.
Well, all of us, different times,
Yes.
different ways. But I'm so glad that we can have this conversation.
Yes.
And yeah.
But good to see you, and
Yeah.
you don't age. For a
I
minute.
do actually. I don't feel as strong as I was 20 years ago.
Maybe just the bones, but
Yeah.
But structurally, nothing has really changed.
A few exercises here and there,
It's working.
push-ups, and
It's working for
I
you.
walk where I can, and I choose what I eat. So that keeps me going, and laughter here and there, playing with my grandchildren.
I will get a tip when you're on a break on the recipes and what you
There's
eat.
more where that came from.
How have you been, though?
It's been a roller coaster of different things. I feel like I have lived 3 lives in the last 5 years. I was an active student.
Yes.
Was at my doctorate for about 6.5 years, interrupted briefly by the 2022 political race. And very, very busy with my music as well. And then I went into writing a book, a very academic thing, and just published it in 2023. So you know how it goes. You sit many hours at night, and my back was really hurting, and I strained my neck, and so the exercises came in handy. And of course, then I've been reading the political climate, and just like I felt in 1992, 93, when I penned that song, I Have a Dream. It's sad to see that the things I dreamed about have never been quite realized. And it doesn't have to be me becoming president. I just think that Kenya needs to reboot. And if we looked at where we've come from, what we have done this far, I really think if we don't reboot this time, we will probably not do so in a very, very long time. Because it seems like we are racing downwards into a crash. And somebody asked me a very difficult question, and usually because I'm a teacher, I'm a very objective person.
Yes.
So somebody asked me, what good thing would you say has happened, that was done by this government, the current government? And I must say, I found it really hard to answer that question.
You
Ordinarily,
struggled to
yeah,
think
because
through what it is.
I really don't want to paint people in a bad light. But it is really hard for me to find one single thing I can celebrate that this government has done right. I came close to finding something, but it was really in the sports, Our athletes have done well. I can see the expansion of Kasarani Stadium, the Talanta Stadium. But when you dig behind the the economics of it and what is being neglected as that is being done, it still leaves you with something really bad in the throat.
Well, you've just gone straight to it.
Oh, okay.
We're looking at 3 years in. But before we even go there, because you've talked about a reboot.
Yeah.
You've talked about crashing. Very strong words there. You've been a voice of conscience in a very noisy political landscape for so many years, from the 90s,
yes,
you've said,
and
the aspirations that then you had, and for some of us who are still, growing up through the different political seasons, we're coming to now a different election cycle, and as it were, every time we come close to an election, we kind of get this buzz around what have you done. We go back to look at the promises. And a lot of the things that President William Ruto, during his campaign tours, and that then led up to the manifesto and the county economic charters from every county. I mean, there were meetings that were held looking at different issues in this country. And I have to ask, because you've been through these different dispensations in our politics, what is the one thing that you think stands out with this presidency compared to the previous presidents? Because Kenya's come from difficult places before, but here we are. But what sticks out for you with this administration?
That's a compound question. You would allow me to hitchhike on something?
Oh, please.
Because I really think, although I was young, the person that really got Kenya going right or thinking right was the late Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Because he was one person who was able to stand against Kenyatta, the first Kenyatta, and say, you've got to put people at the center. I think he got it right, or he suffered for it. I mean, all of us that want people at the center will suffer for it. Because what we actually got was not independence. It was like a capitalistic negotiation of entrenching neocolonialism. So Kenyatta negotiated independence. But Odinga Senior got it right, and Piogama Pinto and the rest were fighting to put people at the center. So comes in Moi, and he goes the capitalistic way as well. Comes in Kibaki. At first, he's, doing it right, but then he goes again into extractionism, and that's why all these scandals come in. So Uhuru Kenyatta comes in, and we're thinking he'll build on Kibaki's legacy, if nothing else, because Kibaki inaugurated the Constitution, began all this process of dialogue where people are able to talk issues. Then comes in Uhuru, and let me give you a scenario here. So Kibaki, in his entire time, borrowed maybe like 1.2 trillion to be able to develop Kenya. Uhuru pushes it to about 8 trillion. As we're speaking now, Ruto has just pushed it to about 12 trillion of borrowed money. This is, and if you look at Kibaki's approach to development, it was pretty much people-centered. So in the end, if you were to ask me, what makes the big difference between a good leader and a bad leader, a successful leader and one who's not successful, it would be where you place people. Because capitalistic extractionism that looks at me and my friends benefiting from the economy loots everything in its wake. People-centered, social democracy says, what can we give to the people? How can we improve the lives of the people? And, condemn Nyerere or Sankara or these people all you want, they got it right. And so here we are again. 1990, Ruto and I graduate from undergrad. So he goes the way of YK 92 and becomes, Moi's, right-hand person among the youth. I go the other way. Pursuing the repealing of Section 2A and multi-party democracy. I'm listening to Rubia, Matiba, Gitobi Manyara, the senior Jaramogi, all the Shikuku. So that is what shaped who I am politically. And so if you look at how Ruto is doing government and how I would do government, it's totally different. Because for me, people have to be the center. For him, it's his cronies that have to be at the center. And the performance of Ruto in just 3 years is nothing but impressive, because everything he touches crashes or gets destroyed. If he touches education, it goes down, even the funding itself. He touches health, removes NHIF and starts this SHA thing. And you go into all these ghost payments, etc. The affordable housing, he prioritizes something that people are not even asking for, and neglects the essential people-centered things. The same mistake his predecessor was making. If I was Uhuru, I would not build the expressway, because there are more people walking to work.
Than those who are driving.
Yes, than those who are driving. I would not allow America to build that 4-lane expressway to Mombasa before you do the dual carriage from Mombasa to Malaba. You don't, invest in a railway line that terminates at your shamba in Naivasha. That is not national development. That is capitalistic extraction. And of course, the journalists are very smart. They're pulling out data that shows that, all these Chinese management of the railway line and so on is really traceable back to families right here. We haven't even gone to the Pandora, files that have shown Kenyans are investing out there. So if you go capitalistic extractionism, then you want to sell off the country. That's why Ruto would be thinking about selling JKIA, about privatizing and selling off Kenya Pipeline, about selling off KICC, because you're making money out of even things that don't belong to you.
But it's interesting you're saying that, because before all this has happened, we're talking about 3 years in.
Right.
Let's just take steps back to during the campaigns. And just like every election cycle, we normally have rallying calls. So for the last election, we had a rallying call about it's the hustlers versus the dynasties.
Right.
And so there's always a movement that then pushes people to a point where they feel this is the way to vote because it's about us.
Yeah.
And clearly, if you look at the plan, quote unquote, the idea was it's people-centered. It's the Mamamboga, it's the Boda Boda, Mtom Kokoteni. It was just the ordinary, Kenyan out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people believed in it. The church believed in it. There were endorsements from everywhere. And people are getting the buy-in because the plan on paper looked very legit. We're looking at key areas. Agriculture was one of those areas because for the longest time, we had drought in this country. And there was a plan around it about transforming 2 million poor farmers to surplus producers. So we need them to produce. Then we come to issues to do with housing that then later became extremely controversial, supplying 250,000 new homes per year. So we are 3 years in already to go. Healthcare, which again has been a thorn in the flesh for this administration. Publicly funding primary healthcare and comprehensive insurance. It's been a challenge. We look at education that you earlier mentioned, bridging the gap for teacher shortage to 116,000 and raising school funds. There's the issue of capitation that has come in. We go to gender, achieving 2/3 gender rule in public positions. For women, for example, as simple as it may sound, is the issue of providing free sanitary towels in all schools and public washrooms. There are diapers that women are promised, that they will get free diapers and all that. All this is before we even move to issues of governance. Then my question is, seems like every other administration that comes in steps in on the premise of we are people-centered, we understand your issues, we hear your cries, this is how we're going to fix it. Why does it seem then the moment then power is withheld, everything reverses? What is it that we never seem to get right?
There is something that only the religious books get right. and that is the whole aspect of motive. Whether you read the Quran or the Bible or the Torah or whatever, motive, what drives what you do, is always at the heart of success. In other words, you can actually promise the world, you can have the right jargon, you can have the right language for policy, but underneath is hidden a lot of evil structures and destruction. In the traditional African societies, we used to talk about the hare and the hyena, and you would have the hare making all these smart moves to trick, you know. So there is a lot of trickster stuff. Whether you're looking at Kenya or you're looking at global and issues, geopolitics in general, you could have something as good as philanthropy. You know, we want to help the children of Africa. We want to help the starving of Ethiopia. We want to help, the poor women. Then you dig in and you realize that people like Bill Gates, in wanting to vaccinate our animals or vaccinate our teenage girls and so on, have ulterior interests. And it's the same in politics. So you have the right jargon, you have the right language, but you never look, beyond. So every time, in fact, and I keep insisting, every time you listen to a politician,
laugh out loud with Tyler Perry's House of Pen.
You have what I call the over-table script, and then you have the under-table script. The over-table script is always nice sounding, right jargonization.
It's what people want to hear.
Yes. And so you tell people, I want to help you. I'm here to solve your problems. I'll give you free fertilizer. I will never have anybody abduct you anymore. We have to bring this to an end. So you have all that right sounding word, but all you want is to get into office, and then your real colors begin to show up.
Did you see President William Ruto's colors before he even became president?
Absolutely, sir. And that is why I was running for office. I not only saw President Ruto's real colors, I also saw Raila Amolo Odinga's real colors. Well, and that is why I stood against both of them.
Well, we'll talk about the two who are now part of the broad-based government.
Yes, and I need to keep telling you that if they were doing the right thing, if they were actually good leaders, I would never stand against them.
Powerful. Let's take a break. We'll be coming back. We are in studio with presidential aspirant 2027, Reuben Kigame. Stay with us.
Buy Smarter Bundle today. Dial *544# or use My Airtel app. Na bado tuna grow. Asanteni wa Kenya.
I make Monday count by reading Health and Science. It helps me eat healthy, live healthy, and stay healthy.
Setting the standard every day of the week. The Standard, Kenya's bold newspaper.
Hey Baba, Olodumare, my one and only, the giver of life.
Everybody telling me to. Everybody telling me to. Well, everybody telling me to. Go shorty. We gon' party like it's your birthday. Go.
Desperado.
DJ Tatua.
Mamigo. Balotelli. Ladies to give me for.
kuongelesha?
Ni wewe naongelesha ndugu.
Mimi nilikuwa nafikiria ni kuimba unaimba.
Ni kuimba kweli naimba, lakini nakuuliza tena kazi iko waje?
Wewe ni nani? Unabeba hapa kama nani wewe?
Hii ni stage na si ya mtu.
Toka hapa.
Toka hapa. Toka hapa.
Wewe achana wewe.
Ama utafanya nini?
You dears. My hostess.
Yeah, Jezebel. Kumbe unaitwa you dears?
Unaniaibisha mbele ya my family. Severally.
Several times.
550
Only. No, you have been a good person to me. Lazima nikuongeze kitu bana.
Uko shule. Wewe lipa gari.
Unataka how much?
50,000. Unataka yote?
Haididi. Tiliati. Mnanipeleka madhara ndio mali yangu kule bila mnataka. Kuna mnadanganya ati this for my own good.
Ni wewe ulimaliza maji kwa fridge, ukarudisha kibuyu bila maji.
Serious. Unanipigania hizo madrama nikiwa job?
Wewe anjalipa gari.
Unataka kulipa?
Unafaa nikuitie polisi wewe. Nonsense. Toka hapa.
Welcome back to KTN Prime. In studio, I have my guest here, presidential aspirant Dr. Reuben Kigame, and we're looking at the state of the nation. We are going beyond politics. We want to look at matters economy. We also, at some point, will look at what his vision for the country is as he's seeking an election for the top office in the country. Before we went for the break, we were talking about William Ruto, Raila Odinga, the two in the broad-based government, and you're talking about colors. You had seen this, and you made a statement and said if they, you said something that you wouldn't have stood for president if you knew that they were going to work for Kenyans?
Actually, if Ruto did the right thing, I would be one of those really supporting him. Again, excuse me, I'm a preacher, so I must keep, going back to my scriptures. Genesis 4:7 says, if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? So anywhere anybody does what is right, people generally love it. If you're serving people, if you are helping people, if you're listening to people, you will certainly be accepted. You'll be loved. It's not about doing everything people want. It's about making the right decisions that change the lives of people. So I looked at the fact that Uhuru and Ruto were already indicted at the ICC. You don't indict all these other Kenyans, you indict these 6. If they're already being discussed as citizens with question marks, I don't know whether they actually committed the crimes or not, but the fact that they are indicted should mean that they should never be near power. And that is why I had a problem even with the appointments that were made in October, November 2022. Because you picked people into government that already had cases of graft, cases of murder. Once you do that, you're basically saying you don't have a problem with adversely mentioned people. And so when they appear later on, certainly you'll have to close your eyes against them. That's not a good starting point. Secondly, you have the opportunity to appoint professionals and put people where they are qualified as CSAs, etc. You choose to appoint cronies. Meritocracy is thrown out of the window. That was already a sign of failure. And it didn't start with Ruto, it started with Uhuru. Because if you remember someone like Professor Magoha, what was his specialization? He was a urologist. So what was a urologist doing in the Ministry of Education? when all these wonderful people, the Sifunas, the, Professor Wandi and Joya, all these people are around who are, smart education brains. And so I would say, if I look back now, I can just say, if you've been adversely mentioned, let's say in the importation of maize or fertilizer, or you've touched land, somebody's land here or there that you shouldn't have, actually, you should not be vying for office.
So you're talking about issues of integrity.
Yes, absolutely.
There's the issue of corruption that you mentioned, and also you touched a bit on justice, and we'll come back to that later because of what we then saw last year, spilling over into this year, in terms of the anti-finance bill protests and all that.
Right.
But I wanted to bounce back to some key pillars. And these are ongoing conversations. And let's talk about economy. We currently have a debt of above 10 trillion.
12, actually.
12 trillion,
yeah.
rather. There is the conversation around the odious debt, whether we keep borrowing more, and we're seeing a lot of borrowing still happening.
Right.
So there's a question of what is currently happening and what you would do then differently.
Yeah.
There are conversations around either restructuring that or defaulting. Which options would you then go for, or do you recommend? But to just bring a closure to that bit is the realities then when you're talking about Kenyans.
Yeah.
The cost of living is crippling very many families.
Yes.
What one policy would immediately reduce was the question of unga, and a lot of people argue it's not just unga people consume every day. So it can't be the yardstick that you would use to say that we are...
Unga is representative of food.
Yes.
Yeah.
But generally the cost of living.
Yeah.
And you're also looking at the programs that then later, which were not part of the plan, empowerment programs. We are seeing the deputy president, we are seeing the politicians around going to different parts of the country in these empowerment programs, meeting women groups, meeting youth groups, meeting all these different groups, and coming with ideas that we are actually then people-centric. We're going to where the people is. What is your take on the current state of the economy? And then if you are to be elected president, how would you do things differently?
There is no rocket science about rekindling the economy. There is no mystery around it. You've got to invest in such a way that the country produces, not imports and receives, and you're depending on foreign countries for your stability. So if you really want the economy to work, the first thing you do is bring down the cost of production. And you're talking about energy, you're talking about even the whole question of taxation and so on. What do you zero rate? What do you, give concessions on? If a particular investment is going to create, let's say, 2 million jobs, I don't have a problem zero rating the investment itself. Now, you see companies moving from Kenya into Tanzania and into Egypt to do production there. Egypt depends on us for water. And yet, if you go to, places like your favorite food chains, KFC and so on, we're importing potatoes from Egypt when we have potatoes in Nyandarua here. So instead of making Nyandarua work, we want to say, open your franchise here and import. So you've got to lower the cost of production. Secondly, you've got to expand the sectors that this country, that form the backbone of this country. For example, agriculture. So if every time you talk about agriculture, people rush to the cliches, irrigation and all of that. But when you ask how much irrigation has been done and become successful, like Galana Kulalo, you run into all these monsters that are ensuring that it doesn't work. Ukambani still has no water. Although Turkana has so much water underneath the surface of the earth, it's not being used by the people of Turkana. So if agriculture has to work, we not only expand the acreage, but we also ensure that things like fertilizer and other amenities are available at very reasonable prices. Now, what does this government do? It says it's going to give that free fertilizer, but then goes ahead and imports or brings about fake fertilizer, and those who are responsible are never brought to book. But there is the other issue of post-harvest wastages and so on when it comes to agriculture, so that what is produced never quite gets to the market. Or you have all these middlemen that will see farmers in Mount Kenya produce nice coffee, and in Naivasha or Nakuru produce pyrethrum, and horticulture in general is booming. But in between are all these people that make sure the farmer gets very little. So to stir up the economy, you'd have to make agriculture work for the people, and so the farmers get value for what they produce. But wait, there is something else that happens, like in the sugar industry.
Yes.
So you have these barons that come in between, and they buy off these factories, or they make them not to work, so that sugar is then imported, you see. So these same people, that's what I was calling capitalistic extraction, will go to Western Kenya and say, tutawafanyia hivi Nzoia, Mumias must actually, come back to life, Sony, But then you go to the shelves and you find packets of sugar written Mumias or Nzoia that were imported from outside, from Brazil, or from, through Somalia, the Kismayu. So the farmers are always taken on a ride. But these are the jobs that the young people are looking for. Mm-hmm. And so to stir up the economy, you have to boost those sectors, but then also come to the point where you create jobs by expanding existing opportunities. For example, when I travel to the US, I find that my Kenyan friends are doing 2 or 3 jobs. Who said that people must, if you're a teacher, you can't be an Uber driver or go and work at a restaurant? I am looking forward to a day when university students will go and attend classes during the day, and in the evening go and work at KFC or Java and get a decent pay. I'm looking forward to internships. I'm looking up to what I call demarginalization, where you create jobs by opening up areas of the country that have not been developed, like Mandera. You go to Isiolo, you can open up those, Lodwar, Marakwet, certainly Isbania. So open these places so that those, for example, who live in slums, because people come to Nairobi to look for jobs, don't have to come to Nairobi to look for jobs. And you will be, reducing informal settlement, at the same time expanding job markets, etc.
But this conversation about jobs, globally, in terms of just the reality, so many countries, including the US itself, they have issues of unemployment.
Yeah.
And during the campaign trail, when Trump was running against Kamala Harris, that was a big conversation. It's not any different from the continent, not any different here in Kenya. It's a very common theme that will create jobs and create more jobs. And the counter-argument is, in terms of creating jobs, then give our vijana wapatie bodaboda, tanks where they can do car wash business, or then get them out of the country to the Middle East,
in our previous conversation before we went for the break,
yes,
there's something I really wanted to say that I didn't say, and that is that everyone who tells you that they will grow the economy by using what you call the bottom-up approach are sheer liars.
Why would you say that?
Because, you see, for an economy not to be functioning, so that there's so many jobless people, the mama mboga, the mistake is not mama mboga, boda guys. The mistake is that up is rotten. And you've got to fix the roof for the leaking to stop. It's not the boda boda and mama mboga that are stealing from our coffers. It's not, you know, the vegetable vendors that are going to sell JKIA. It's not, you know, the boda boda guys that are ganging up to sell Kenya Pipeline. You see, Kenya Pipeline is a lifeline for so many people. The airport employs so many people. These parastatals, instead of making them work, if you sell them, you're actually selling your lifeline. So what we need to fix is the top. And watu wa Kenya hawana shida. Watu wa Kenya ni hard working. Watu wa Kenya wamejituma. The issue is that wanajituma, wanazalisha, and then all that money is taken by a few people and gambled away. And then they will pretend to be borrowing money. They go to China, get all these loans. They say, we are going to build, you know, this dam for you. They go to Italy, say, we'll build Kimaror or Aror. Then they never build the dams, but they've taken the money on our behalf. Then we've got to pay. So I don't have very nice words for them. They are thieves, they are thugs, they are criminals that should be behind bars. Because you see, if you are hungry and you come and take a banana from my house, you'll be jailed. Somebody will want to sell Kenya Pipeline and they will be promoted. That's nonsense.
Well, there's still more to talk about, and we don't have a lot of time. I just want to run through these things very, very quickly. Let's look at education, because you earlier talked about, you mentioned education.
Yeah.
And you even questioned why we had the late Magoha as CS education in terms of credentials. On education, there's the conversation around capitation, conversations around CBC, which has sparked a lot of controversy. In your opinion, would you retain, would you reform, or would you abolish it, and why?
I want to speak as a teacher now.
Yes.
The first thing I would do if I was to reform education would be to declare that every child from primary, high school, and university, undergraduate, must go to school for free.
Where will you get the money to do that?
Let me give you the maths. In 2024, how much did we spend on education? 656 billion, and that's the highest spender. Do you know how much it would take to provide free education in Kenya today? 298 billion.
Working with which numbers?
With 15,000 for every primary school student, 27,000 for every high school student, and 200 to 210,000 for every university undergrad student. Those numbers will come to below 300 billion. So we're spending 656 billion, more than 358 billion more than we should spend. And education is not free. We haven't even touched CDF, which is gobbled by MPs. We haven't touched that. We haven't even touched all these equalization things that they send to arid and semi-arid counties. So if I was to reform education, the first thing is abolish CDF. If you're going to give free money to education, put it in one basket and let everybody that needs to get it, get it. Now, education is not free. Parents are still paying. So I would first of all declare education free, because we can, even with about 95 billion more, we can build all the missing classes. And I'm talking to you as a teacher now. The second thing I would do is abolish CBC, CBE completely, because we didn't need and don't need a new system.
We go back to 844?
Exactly. And this is a simple rule of thumb. If you want a system to be more practical, just introduce practical courses. Introduce ICT, introduce more physics, more engineering, more, bring in all these technical courses. But you don't destroy our middle-level colleges. The technical colleges are turned into universities. You don't destroy our industrial training programs and so on. And then you introduce a new system of education to do exactly the same thing that you have destroyed. That's madness.
But people might argue that the whole piloting and the facing may have been mad with a lot of issues.
It was not necessary, Dennis. You didn't need to pilot anything. You didn't need to introduce any new system.
So for
remember,
you, we go back to 844.
remember, I personally went through the 7-4-2-3 system.
Yeah.
That was changed by
I
Moi.
went through 844.
So you went through 844.
Yes.
So every time a new leader comes in and wants to make some money out of education, you change the education system.
Do you think this is
And
about
that's
money?
one thing I'm not very happy about Matiang'i, because we went to school at the same time and education worked. We graduated the same year, same college. That time, we knew that if you were a student, you would actually, you would receive education, you would receive free meals 3 times a day, you would be even given what was called boom. So when you had the double intake of 1986-87, you had the University Students Accommodation Board build, prefabs to accommodate students. Now, Ruto, Matiang'i know that education worked because you had to pre-plan, budget for it, and so on. Now, what's happening now? If you introduce a new system, of course you have to train and retrain the teachers. We've not even got to the point where we need to hire all those that we have already trained under the old system. So I would say let's stop the madness.
Okay.
And so that's one thing. Then another thing, you've got to deal with this ghost culture where you build schools or assign capitation to schools that don't exist. And of course, ghost schools come with ghost teachers and ghost workers.
That goes into the corruption you're earlier talking about.
Exactly.
You change so that you can make money from it.
Yeah, so you need to deal with corruption, not just in education, but in every particular aspect, because corruption is pretty much institutionalized.
Do you see the same corruption getting into health? Because we have a couple of sticking points in this administration. And so when you talk about SHA, for example...
I was going there, but so the corruption has eaten into education such that, Dennis, if you assigned, let's say, 22,000 shillings per student in high school, and the school was waiting for that money, by the time the government releases that money, they'll be sending to the schools less than 10,000 shillings per student. Now, what will the principals of those schools have to do? Because you've promised the money, it doesn't come. And that's the same thing that happens.
Open, money is still not coming.
Yes. Now, what the schools then do is turn to parents. Now, when you could provide free education, when you could actually release the money on time, our schools have become dens of animal-like behavior. When you went to school, when I went to school, we used to have deckers, in dormitories. Now they have triple deckers.
Because of the numbers.
Yes. So why would you have triple deckers? Staffing all these guys, the safety of the students notwithstanding, in a school that has an extra 100 acres of land sitting there, just waiting for the politicians to grab. Expand the facilities. This school is going to grow. When I taught at Maryhill High School, the total number of students there were about 500. Now 500 makes one class. So that
because
in
population is increasing.
True, but when population increases, as government, you've got to expand. You've got to increase with it. So and that's why we have 5-year plans. That's why we had Vision 2030, etc. Because you look into the future and say, in 5 years, you will have so many people would have died, so many people would have been born, so many people will be going to schools, and so on. I work with people that want to work with me in the next government, and MCAs, MPs, governors, senators. Every time they come to me and say, we want to work with you in the next government, I tell them, if you can only tell me one thing, do you know how many people live either in your constituency or in your county? Do you know how many women? Do you know how many children? Do you know how many deaths every year? Do you know, because with these data, you can actually plan. And every department has data.
Yes. So we've run out of time. I just want us to finish on this.
We're just getting started.
You're getting started. I know. I wish we had 2 hours. We only had an hour, and that's how fast time has moved.
So the health sector is the same thing. That instead of, they said there was a problem with NHIF because NHIF was corrupt.
Yes.
So how do you fix a corrupt system? You don't start a new one. You remove the corruption from the system.
So the problem is not the system that
Never.
we talk about.
Every
it's
time,
the people behind the
every
systems.
time you see something new introduced in Kenya, is quite likely a looting trough.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. And of course, through that, you've also shared what you think needs to work in this country.
I've not told you anything of what I want to do for the country.
You've mentioned a couple of things.
Let me just give me 1 minute.
Idea. I'm giving you a minute. Tell us, if you become president 2027, what is that one thing?
The distinctives of a Reuben Kigame presidency are mainly two.
Yes.
One, the philosophy that I would use to run the country, and that is utu, haki, na maadili. That is human dignity, justice, and values. That will be my philosophy. Then 3 commitments that I want to burn my midnight oil on. Number 1, bomoa ufisadi. That is dismantle corruption. Number 2, tekeleza katiba. Implement the constitution to the full. And thirdly, jenga Mkenya. That's how I'm going to drive the economic progress of this country. Because you don't look at development using GDP. You look at whether Dennis has food in his stomach, whether his children are going to school, whether Dandora still have people scavenging at the dump site, whether you have people in Nyalenda being evicted. So you look at how the lives of the individual citizens are.
Well, we'll have many more conversations around your plan and how you'll come around it, and the persecutions also that you've endured. We'll talk about all that.
I seem to be familiar with those because imagine that when I declared recently, I was stopped by the police. I mean, nobody else has been stopped declaring. So there must be something that I'm either doing right or wrong.
Well, you are on the spotlight. Very many thanks. Thank you so much for,
it was really nice
for making time.
Yeah, no, thank you.
We've just had a conversation with the presidential aspirant 2027. He's going for it again. He's done it in the past. He will stop, but he's sure that he has a clear plan on where to take this country. Reuben Kigame. Many thanks for watching KTN Prime. My name is Dennis Okari. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
Thank you.
Good night.